Good morning, Rocketeers. We are going to go ahead and get started with our read aloud. I hope you guys enjoyed our little kind of break yesterday with our project. That was super fun. I hope you didn't eat too many Oreos if you tried it out at home. But I'm going to get us started with our read aloud for today. And we're reading about a very special lady, astronaut named Mae Jemison. And this is a kind of text called a biography, talking all about someone's life. I see here a table of contents. Let's go ahead and get started. Here she is in a spacecraft, it looks like. It says, meet Mae Jemison. Mae Jemison was an astronaut. She was the first African-American woman to travel into space. The smart and hardworking Jemison is also a dancer, a doctor, a teacher, and an author. Jemison was born on October 17th, 1956 in Decatur, Alabama. When she was 3 years old, her family moved to Chicago, Illinois. So here we see Alabama. That's the state where she grew up. And Decatur was the city or town where she was born. Here she is here in this photo. Jemison learned how to read even before she started school. She was curious about everything. Her kindergarten teacher asked the children what they wanted to be when they grew up. Jemison said, "I want to be a scientist." Jemison's science background helped her become an astronaut. She was very interested in science. Are any of you super interested in science? Maybe you'll be an astronaut too. Reaching for the stars. Not many women or African Americans were scientists, but when Jemison was growing up. But young Mae did not let that stop her. She was very interested in astronomy. She read books about the stars and the moon, and at night she looked up at the sky and dreamed. Very cool. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon. We're going to read about Neil Armstrong later on. Jemison worked hard and did very well in school. Her grades were so good that she even skipped 7th grade. Jemison especially liked to do science experiments. Fast fact, when Jemison was in middle school, Neil Armstrong became the first human to walk on the moon. Jemison entered Stanford University in California when she was just 16 years old. So she was a cardinal. Wow! She was the youngest student in her class. Jemison was still very interested in astronomy and outer space. She watched all the space missions on TV. In 1981, Americans watched the launch of the space shuttle Columbia on TV. Here she is. Around the world and beyond. In 1977, Jemison went to medical school to study to become a doctor. She traveled to Africa and Asia. She took care of people in poor communities. Fast fact, in addition to English, Jemison speaks Japanese, Russian, and Swahili. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. That's so awesome. She must work really hard to become that good at languages. She knows 3 languages, and she was a cardinal. She went to Stanford, and she's going back to school to be a doctor to go help people in Africa. That's so many great things. There's something that shows me that she has the character trait of persistence. She's being super persistent, and she's a really hard worker. Those are some character traits that I would use for Jemison so far. In 1983, Jemison joined the Peace Corps as a doctor and returned to Africa. The Peace Corps sends Americans around the world to help improve the lives of people in different countries. Fast fact, the Peace Corps was founded in 1961 by U.S. President John F. Kennedy to help spread peace and friendship around the globe. I actually know that Mrs. Myers was part of the Peace Corps, and she went to the Philippines. That's a cool little fast fact. So just like Mae Jemison, she was in the Peace Corps. A Peace Corps volunteer works with a woman in Africa. Here we see Sally Ride and Guion Bulford. In 1985, Jemison returned to California and worked at a hospital. She also applied to the astronaut program at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Guys, that stands for NASA. You guys want to say that again? National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. A year later, she began her training at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Fast fact, Sally Ride was the first woman to go into space in 1983. Later that same year, Guion Bulford became the first African American in space. Jemison had a lot to learn before she went into space. She learned about the space shuttle she would be working on. She got used to moving around in zero gravity. This photo shows Jemison in a parachute survival school. That is so cool. Parachute survival school. Very neat. Jemison is ready to board the shuttle. On September 12, 1992, I was just 1 year old, the space shuttle Endeavour lifted into space. Jemison did many experiments on board. Some experiments tested what happened to the human body in zero gravity. The results would help people stay healthy in space. Fast fact, Dr. Jemison was in space for 190 hours, 3 minutes, and 23 seconds. That's almost 8 full days. Jemison left NASA in 1993 and later founded the Jemison Institute. Its mission is to bring technology to poor countries. She also began an international science camp program for teenagers called The Earth We Share. Here she is. Here's a little timeline of her life. This is her more recently. Well, this is her as more of an older adult. Timeline of Mae Jemison's life. In 1956, she was born on October 17th. In 1987, she was accepted into NASA's astronaut program. In 1992, Endeavour Space Shuttle launches on September, I think it was 12th. Jemison is also part of a project called 100-Year Starship. Its goal is to help humans travel to the stars in the next 100 years. Jemison is an inspiration to young women everywhere, and she never stops trying new things. Here's another part of the timeline. She becomes a Dartmouth college professor, and she founded a Institute for Advancing Technology in Developing Countries. In 2011, she joined NASA's 100-Year Starship program. She does so many things. It says she never stops trying new things. And it also mentions that she is an inspiration to young women everywhere. So Rocketeers, I'm going to put 2 questions on the Google form for you. One of them is going to be, why is she so inspiring to women everywhere? And also, what is one thing that you learned about Jemison? So make sure you think about one thing you remember from this book. Maybe write it down in some notes before you go to the Google form. One thing you remember about her that you learned. And why do you think she's so inspiring to women everywhere? Before we go, there's a quick little poem. And then I'm going to show you a really short video with Mae Jemison actually talking. And you'll get to see a little bit about her. A poem about Mae Jemison. She dreamed about going to space one day, then didn't let anyone stand in her way. Still learning, still dreaming, she makes us say, anything's possible. Hooray for Mae. Perfect. I love that. Let's exit out of here. I'm going to show you this really quick video, and then I'll let you go. Make sure you fill out that Google form. Make sure you're doing your OLPs, especially you pioneers and cardinals. Actually, all of you. Please do your OLPs. Work really hard. We love everything that you're doing so far. But watch this video. Go to the Google form.
I grew up in the 60s. I lived on the south side of Chicago, and I was a young girl who loved to stare up at the stars. I imagined myself going there. I studied all the things about the Apollo program. I knew what mission was going to take place when, what it was supposed to accomplish. I decided to go to medical school because I wanted to do something called biomedical engineering. While I was in medical school, I had the opportunity to go and work in a Cambodian refugee camp. I went on a study group in Cuba. I worked with the flying doctors in East Africa. But I still wanted to go into space, so I applied. I picked up the phone. I called down to Johnson Space Center. I said, I would like an application to be an astronaut. They didn't laugh. I turned in the application. There may be a certain naivete when I say, when I applied to the astronaut program, I didn't even think about the fact of whether I would be the first African-American woman in space or anything like that. It didn't even cross my, I wanted to go into space. I couldn't have cared if there had been 1,000 people in space before me or whether there had been none. I wanted to go. I thought it was important to take to space with me things that represented people who sometimes are not included. So I took a poster of Judith Jamison performing the dance cry. I took a Bundu statue, which was for the Women's Society in West Africa. I took up a flag for the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, the oldest African-American women's sorority in the United States, because they hadn't been included. And I thought that was an important thing to do.
Mae Jemison is an amazing, amazing woman, an amazing role model. So I'm just going to leave it there. Please go to the Google form. Thanks, guys.